Hey all, Siege here, and I've finally completed my first and most likely last Kuva lich. Look, if you like this kind of thing, that's great, and I'm glad for you, but this is without question the worst experience I've ever had in Warframe, and I can't think of anything that even comes close. The sheer amount of grind that's associated with the process is so incredibly tedious, long, and potentially difficult for such little reward that it's almost insulting. Seriously, I haven't been this mad while playing Warframe ever as far as I can remember, mainly due to the sheer bullshit throughout the length of the war against the lich, both before you're capable to fight them, and even after you've accumulated all the boxes you need to check off just to actually fight the fucking guy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's chronicle my experience, and we'll talk about my overall impressions in more detail afterward, shall we? So I head to Adara, and after finally realizing what the fuck was causing the screen to go red in my last 10 missions without any syndicates or the stalker showing up, I killed my Kuvaling and we were off to the races. Immediately I remembered there were specific mods I needed by doing Kuva floods and siphons from the quote-unquote tutorial, which I guess covers all the bases, but doesn't prepare you one iota for what's really in your future. I only did floods, but was lucky enough that even DE realized how ridiculous the process is, so they gave out a bunch of Requiem relics the weekend the update launched. And no, DE, I don't forgive you. So, I gathered a nice group of Requiem relics, and I realized at that point these relics really did need to be upgraded in order to have a good chance at getting a nice collection before I went searching for the murmurs needed to know which Requiem mods were the right mods needed to kill my lich. I know, it's kind of confusing at first, not to mention this would require me grinding Void Fissure missions in order to generate some Void Traces, so into a sea of Void Fissures I went. Not sure if you can guess how this went, but let's just say that if you don't have Void Traces to upgrade regular relics, the chances of you getting anything any of the other players want enough to choose your reward to generate those sweet bonus traces is as small as the chances of getting mods and Requiem relics that aren't upgraded. Convenient, right? Anyway, after finally grinding out about 5 mods, I decided to begin the Murmur collection. Collecting Murmurs requires heading into specific areas controlled by the Lich and killing designated targets called Thralls, both filling this gauge up as well as making it increasingly more likely the Kuva Lich himself will spawn to come out and fight. Now this next part is what really made the overarching experience unpleasant as it continued on. That first fight against your Lich comes pretty quickly, and it's shockingly easy to burn through the Lich's shield and first health bar, but unless you were fortunate enough to own the correct mod right off the bat and slot it in the first mod slot, he one-shots you and gains a level. You die, and this cycle, this game loop, is the game loop. Grind Kuva floods for guaranteed Requiem relics, and if you're desperate or have literally nothing else to do with your time, or both, grind Kuva siphons for chances at relics. Then, grind the Kuva variant of Void Fissures, and when you run out of Requiem relics, you can either run a few basic planet nodes that have been increased in difficulty based on what level your Lich is powered up to, this being determined by how many times you've been bodied by the fucker, by killing those Thrall that show up. Occasionally, those Thrall will drop a relic, so there's that, or hitting the regular Void Fissures while waiting for more Kuva floods or siphons to show up. It's really up to you how you want to attack this absurdity. I personally don't know, but here's what I do know. Nightwave already had me doing the same basic Warframe content. Exterminate, spy, defense, rescue, etc., over and over and over again for okay rewards. So I want to do something different now. Also, because the Lich and all the enemies on each controlled node get higher in level, some of these basic missions become a real fight for survival. And whereas I love a good challenge, I don't like dealing with bullshit, and that's exactly what happens as you get closer to actually being able to properly complete the Lich fight. Now, I caught on to what was happening overall after a few missions and was able to keep my Lich at level 4. But even then, these nodes are now at almost sortie levels, where I'm trying to fill this stupid little circle at a rate I can barely even see move when I get a Thrall kill, that also seem to only spawn a few per mission, which means it takes a good many just to get each murmur for, what, basic mission rewards at the end? Basic mission rewards? And when you finally slog through old mission node after old mission node and finally acquire everything you need, get ready for the final fight. But to be honest, if your lich is at 4 or 5 and you aren't min-maxed to at least some respectable degree and have a decent build on your frame, get ready for a bunch of final fights, as this motherfucker is going to do you as dirty as possible. And he's going to be bringing a shit ton of high-level help to swarm you in the process. Although I'll admit, once I was to this point, it still took an additional 7 missions at level 90 for him to finally show up, where I wasn't getting anything for my thrall kills. Now, if he kills you, he leaves. If any of the bullshit ads that seemingly spawn out of nowhere once he's randomly spawned out of nowhere to kill you, he leaves. And of course, if you get the relic wrong, or in the wrong order, he leaves, only to return a level higher on that last one. Now, in my particular case, there was a hidden bullshit modifier, essentially that my lich was weak to radiation and electricity, 2 elements that don't do dick against high-level Grineer. So I then had to split my loadout to deal with ads versus the boss. And on top of all this, my lich could seemingly one-shot me through walls, around corners. There was literally no safe place to stand or even hide, even when using Chroma or Rhino, given that he had Oberon's Hallowed Ground, Saren's Miasma, and an arch gun that could fire pretty damn fast. Something I was excessively excited about as my reward, given that I still don't even have the components for the Gravimag, because I wasn't real fond of that grind either. Lucky fucking me. Anyway, after all this nonsense, and trying multiple Warframes, weapons, companions, and even searching the internet to see if it was possible to just get rid of the lich, I finally manned the hell up, got serious, and used Revenant. And even then, even when I had what I felt was a guaranteed win, I still lost once more to another random bombard. But finally,
I had to decide. It took me all of 10 seconds. Let's face it, boys and girls. A man has to have his priorities.
it's over. And it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to have to regrind all those missions at such a high level for literally nothing special. It wasn't fun dealing with RNG on the acquiring Requiem relics, the RNG on opening the Requiem relics, the RNG on both the weapon type and the elemental amount, as that's, I guess, what everyone's really grinding, right? A percentage of elemental damage on a few base weapons for one decent weapon to come out of it. And then do that process over and over to try to get one of all of them? I mean, what else do you get from it? Riven slivers? Kuva? No. A lot would have to change for me to want to do this again. Off the top of my head, I can come up with a few things too. I would say more progress on murmurs for each thrall kill to start, and something more than an Exilus weapon slot reward as the highest tier on these relics, considering you can buy them from the syndicates right now. Maybe some special reward for collecting a full murmur, making, at least a few of those missions somewhat worth doing. How about a node to spawn once you've actually gotten all the required crap together, just so the last boss fight isn't so fucking RNG? Look, I like challenge, but this isn't challenge. It's just putting me at random and increasing disadvantages as it moves forward. Not to mention the fight itself is maybe the worst ever offender of the dreaded immunity phase, as an immunity phase in this fight goes through multiple missions. I look at it like this. Would I recommend any of my friends that have played Warframe in the past to come back for this update? Or try to entice a new player with this as one of the selling points of what endgame in Warframe might look like? Absolutely not. Mainly because I don't know who this game type serves other than veterans with literally nothing else to do in the game. New players fresh from completing War Within aren't going to want to do this. Even though the weapons, potential rivens, and Kuva would actually probably serve them best. Is, veterans have tons of weapons, tons of Kuva, and typically a whole host of incredibly rolled rivens that outperform any of these new weapons already. So you tell me what I'm missing in the comments. And bear in mind that if you say there's an easier way to do this, or there's a better frame, or anything like that, none of that stuff is listed on the Wall of Wisdom. So how the hell was I supposed to know if I wanted to try the content without having to go out of the game to get it? I went in blind for the most part, with some basic advice from my Discord on how the random weapon system worked and what Warframes were strong for it, and was actually really excited for this content. I liked how the Ropa Lowlist and Arlo boss fights seemed to show DE was making some real progress with boss mechanics, but this is a few steps back, I have to say, and until they change a lot more, not only do I see this game mode as one that will be largely forgotten in a year, it's definitely one I've had more than my fair share of. Let me know how your experience was. Fun? I'd love to hear. At any rate, I hope you all have a wonderful day today. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Don't be too mad at me. And I'll talk at y'all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.